morning, everybody. Welcome to another enthralling meeting of the Standards Committee Audit. Seems to have a good turnout today, anyway. I know we haven't got Mr. Salisbury. We've got a lookalike though in James's seat. Bernard's in the wrong seat, but I'm sure we can forgive him. It's all right, Bernard. Don't say where you are, but you're in James Salisbury's seat. Anyway, so we'll kick off with apologies, please. Julie?
Apologies, Chair, for Mr Arshad and Mr Flunder.
Okay. Declaration of interest. I'll just pass on to Caroline.
I don't have a declaration of interest, but I do have someone to introduce to everyone today. It's our new Chief Accountant and Deputy Section 151 Officer. Rachel has had a promotion, so I just thought we'd all congratulate her. And so pleased.
Well in your new role. Minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March 2023. Can someone approve those as a correct record? Graham? Seconded by Janice. Thank you very much for that. Agenda item 4. Establishment of panel to appoint the independent remuneration panel members. I think that's Chris Eberly. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues will have received the report. This is pretty much an annual report that comes your way, or certainly biannual. 2 members of the Independent Remuneration Panel have now exercised their full stay of power, so we're now looking to recruit those 2 vacancies. Thank you very much.
Have we got any volunteers for those 2 vacancies?
No, it's not 2 vacancies.
Oh,
sorry, Chair, to clarify. So the report is recommending to appoint a subcommittee from this audit committee to do the recruitment exercise to recruit the 2 vacancies to the IRP.
Okay, right.
5 of us.
So there's 5 of us apparently.
Any volunteers?
I think Anne's volunteered.
I think we have to volunteer.
Yeah, we'll be volunteering.
So we just need 2 others. Thank you.
Richard and Phil.
Did you get that?
Although Phil will be busy.
Richard Cox, Phil Hewitt, Anne Edgeler, Vice Chair and Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right. I've now got to...
yes,
please.
Apologies first.
What's an apology?
Yeah, apologise that this is going out of order.
Yeah, just got to... Caroline's just reminding me. We're going a little bit out of order here. We're taking a private matter first, so the public are going to be excluded, so I'll just read this out. That the public will be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below.
We're still on camera.
We're just
for a
waiting.
minute, yeah.
We're just waiting.
Takes a minute to switch down. So now you've got to... we need thumbs up again that we're being recorded, don't we?
Are we back online?
Okay.
Right. Right, welcome back, all members of the public. We'll carry on. Agenda item 5 is external audits. That's we've got a Teams gentleman. Have we got? Is it Footy? She's there. Join us.
Good morning, everyone. Just to confirm that anyone can hear me, I'm Ntombifuthi Mhlongo, the Senior Manager at the Minister Young office in Birmingham, representing Hassan to give an audit update. Just to start off, I will start with the 2021 audit update on where we are at that audit. So we've received infrastructure information is guided by SIP bulletin. So we are now auditing that. And there's been some queries that we just need clarity on, and the manager in charge, Mark Russell, will be in contact with the county council just to get some clarity on some areas. And we've also highlighted one new entry that we might need to consider, which is Bulletin 14 of SIFA, Section 10, speaking about the IS-19 disclosures. We've just received guidance that we have to review this for year 2022, and then we can just do a high-level assessment of whether it's impacting on year 2021, as that audit is currently open. And then the audits then will go go some final reviews from the partner in charge as well as the quality reviewer, and then we'll then update the audit results reports. That should be having tabled at the next committee meeting, which I believe should be somewhere around July. And with regards to 22 audits, the planning report was tabled at the last audit committee, and the strategy work is maximally complete, just the team clearing the queries and follow-ups from partner reviews. Majority of the sections on execution has been done on the major items that are still needing some completion are the journals, the PPE section of infrastructure related to 22 audit pensions, which has to consider the impacts of the triennial evaluation. That's just been completed, and then we will then have to complete the other income debtors, the value for money procedures, which will inform our value for money conclusions, and then the team will start, is currently not on this audit, is off-site, but will remain until the end of April. Then we'll start again with the 22 audit in May. So that's the current status. Then if there is any specific clarity seeking questions, I will take those. Thank you.
Janice?
Thank you, Chair. Just if I can clarify one of the points that I think that was made then about there were some areas that still needed clarifying. Was that what referred to the PPE and the pension side, or was it other areas relating to a different period? And with regards to that clarity on what the sum of those areas were, just to give us an indication of the quantity of those and the expected time frame, and if you're likely to be able to hit the next deadlines that you've just mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, for 21 audits, we have received infrastructure information. As you remember, that there were some challenges with the infrastructure and how it was disclosed for the different authorities. So we've received information from council that we've now audited, and we're going to send council some follow-ups on that information and the disclosure note that needs updating for 21. And with regards to the triennial evaluation, we do not think there could be significant impacts for 21, but until we've seen the updated revaluation for 22, we'll have a better understanding of the changes in the valuation for pensions, and then we can consider how that will impact the processes for 21 audits. So from where we're standing currently on the 21 audits, it's just the infrastructure that we need to close and assessing the impact on the triennial evaluation, if any, then we should be able to close that audit going forward. For 22 audits, that is where some execution of major component sections are still outstanding.
Yeah, so is that something that you find quite typical at the moment in general in comparison to other areas as well?
With regards to the follow-ups for the pension valuations, I'll believe that is sort of impacting not just the Staffordshire County, the other as well that are still open audits that we need to do an assessment and the impacts before we close off. And with regards to the 22 audits, we have to evaluate for all of them specifically for the pension side and the impact of the valuation. So I will say also it's not just isolated to Staffordshire County, but all the other authorities that are currently having open audits for 22 as well.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that verbal update. So, are you saying that you can't close 2021 because you're waiting on information from this council to do with the infrastructure close, so you can close the infrastructure part? Or is it that we've given you the information but you haven't got it back to us yet? I didn't quite get which way.
Yes, we've received information, we've audited it, then we have some clarity questions that we need to send back to the county.
So when are we going to see these questions so that we can get back to you and sign this off that should have been signed off such a long time ago?
So basically the team is back in May. It's with the manager currently, Russell, for review. So as soon as he's done the review, then we'll communicate to the county.
So are you saying the whole thing should be signed off May? Is that what you're trying to say here, that by May we will have 2021 signed off, or by May your manager will get back to us?
By May we'll get back to the county and get the clarity that we seek. Oof. And then the final reviews and updates will then take place.
I don't find that acceptable. I really don't find that acceptable. This should have been signed off in December, and if you've got all the information there, you should be turning this round instantly. Can you get back to the manager and ask for this to be sorted imminently? We need this back. We need this signed off.
We understand. I'll come back to you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, I tend to agree with Caroline. It seems to be a never-ending tale, unfortunately, with this 2021. I know you say you're waiting for valuations for 2022, but I'm just a little bit perplexed about it all. And I think we could do with some firm dates, really, where we're actually going to get these signed off. It's all right to keep having updates, but we don't seem to get any further forward than an update. So I'm a bit disappointed, I have to say. Thank you. I think we'll move on then. Well, thank you very much for your update. If you'd like to report back to your manager, I would appreciate it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think as Caroline says, it's a little bit unsatisfactory, but we are where we are. There's not a lot we can do about it. We're in their hands, aren't we? But we'll move on then. I'm sure we'll get... Sorry? Are we changing our auditors? Yes.
After that, good reason. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So agenda item 6, we're over to Lisa, the very dependable Lisa, far more dependable than external auditors, I have to say. Thank you, Lisa. Off you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so before you, you've got the annual report of this particular committee through to full council. It's a summary of all the hard work that the committee's done during 2022-23. So it takes you up to the end of the last meeting that we had in March 23. So it's really a summary of all of that work. The Audit Committee is a really key role in the governance fabric of the organisation, and providing that assurance through to full council of the work that you've undertaken, looking at the effectiveness of the control environment is really key. And I know that I've mentioned previously the public interest reports. A lot of recurrent themes that ran through there was the effectiveness of the audit committee role and holding that scrutiny of that particular control environment and the way in which people were operating. Okay, so just to take you through the key highlights of the work that we've done, it is always very useful to reflect back and think, crikey, we have actually done an awful lot. We reviewed the Code of Conduct, Corporate Governance, so that's a real a key document, again, for the organisation to work through. We've had a look at the procurement arrangements for external audit, which given the previous conversation, we've taken that on board. We've gone with PASA in order to appoint the next auditors, which will be from financial year 23-24. So we've still got 3 financial years that will be audited by our EY colleagues. And they will take that forward, which is KPMG. In terms of looking at our effectiveness, we had a look at the arrangements in March 23. We've got an action plan of how we're going to take that forward. We've got the workshop that's being held on the 23rd of May. We will have looking at our terms of reference and also the potential role of the independent member. Internal audit, you've received a lot of updates from the internal audit team. You've had the plan that came to you in July last year, which identified the top risk areas for that particular year. And during the various meetings of the committee, they have been presented to you together with the relevant officer who's attended to answer any particular questions. And there's some further ones that on that particular list that will be which will come to today's meeting. So as part of the overall outturn for 21-22, which came in July, we gave an adequate assurance regarding the control environment, which is good in order to speak. We've continually to monitor the charter, the audit charter that came through, and you've received a number of additional final reports that were considered to have limited assurance. So again, those reports came through to you, allowing you to scrutinise the actions that would be taken in respect of those high-level recommendations. In addition, certain items you felt as part of those presentations that you wanted individuals to come back to you to give you assurance that things had progressed from that point. One in particular relates to the settlement agreements which you've had earlier this morning. Counter-fraud work, that was summarised and presented as part of the outturn to give you assurance over the number of different areas that we're looking at and the proactive work that's been undertaken as part of the County Council's internal audit work. In respect of governance and risk management, annually we present the annual governance statement, which is the assessment of the control environment and the governance framework. That's part of the accounts and that came through to you for 21-22 back in December. Those areas that were identified are tracked through the Corporate Governance Working Group, and they'll come back to you as part of the 22-23's annual governance statement, which we will be presenting later this year. In terms of the draft statement of accounts, they came through to you for 21-22 in December, and they were approved. They're obviously subject to the to audit, which is ongoing at present. Annually, you receive a report regarding member complaints. That came through in July. That highlighted 11 complaints, 8 of which were concluded with no breaches of conduct Code of Conduct, and the remaining 3 were awaiting a decision, and they'll be included as part of the 22-23 report that will come through to you in July this year. So we ensure that the loop is closed. In terms of the standards panel as well, at the July meeting, 5 members were appointed to the standards panel, namely councillors Haddon, Hutton, Trowbridge, Williams and Worthington. You received the annual report on information governance that went to yourselves in April 2022, and that provided you with an overall opinion regarding the robustness of how we manage our information in terms of data security, and we also looked at cyber security risks as well, and any issues would have been flagged as part of that. And also during the year you've received an update in relation to cyber security from the relevant officers as well. You receive as well the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Performance Report for 21-22, and that again provides an overall assurance with regard to how the Council is managing its health and safety and wellbeing risks. At the External Auditor section, I sort of outline the timeline that we've had for both the 2021 accounts and the 21-22 process, and obviously Fruity from EY has given you an update earlier today. There's an approach, and obviously this particular committee is holding the external auditors to account on delivery of those, and we'll obviously hopefully see an improvement in regard to the speed of getting those concluded ready for the July meeting. That was really a canter through this particular report. Happy to take any questions in relation to that, as to whether or not you feel that it represents the summary of your work. My recommendation to you is that this report is taken via the Chairman through to full Council to give them assurance regarding the operation of the Audit and Standards Committee.
Thank you, Valerie. So I would just like to add that obviously after the 5-year assessment, found that the Internal Audit Service conforms to the highest rating available. So I think that's a heck of a compliment for all the staff involved with that, because I think, as you can appreciate, our external auditors don't seem to be compliant to that standard, what our internal audit are doing. So a big thank you from myself as Chairman, and I'm sure I think all the members will congratulate you, Lisa, on that. Thank you.
Thank you very
Caroline?
much.
Oh, sorry, can I just, it's number 14. If you look, generally conforms is how they put it, and that's the highest standard, generally conforms. Really makes me laugh, but yeah, absolutely. Lisa and her team, we're so lucky to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Question for Lisa?
Comment and a question, if I may, really. I think with the annual report, you really do get a good feel for the significance and the weighty topics that have gone through. I think sometimes just looking at one of those in isolation would be enough to be able to feel overwhelmed with the task in hand, let alone the collection, and just seeing those there certainly gives you a timely reminder of those. I think having the opportunity with the officers in attendance as well, I certainly feel as a member of this committee that we're definitely given the opportunity to provide that support and challenge, whichever way round that it might present itself on a particular session, but we certainly have that opportunity. And I think that's an effective process, but even more so is that follow-up opportunity as well, and keeping a handle of all of those that we've had an opportunity to look, but then we need to revisit them in time as well. So for me, very reassuring to have that opportunity to look back, but also to participate. The only thing that I would have as far as a question really, sometimes with regards to the size of the committee membership, to make sure that we've got sufficient provision of membership contribution as we go through, I suppose would be the only comment that I would add to it, as opposed to a specific question. But yeah, thank you very much indeed to all of the audit people, officers who certainly play that very critical part in what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Anybody else?
Lisa wants to speak.
Lisa, come back.
I did mull over whether or not, in answer to sort of the membership of the committee, if I included member attendance within this particular document. I didn't know whether or not that was perhaps something, in light of your comment, Councillor, that you would like me to incorporate in the report that then feeds through to full council.
From my perspective, when there's people who really let the committee down by not attending, I think it's a bit embarrassing. Do you not think so?
The only bit that I'm for and against, name and shame I don't like doing, so I find that pointless. But again, look, it's all Conservatives around here. I hate that there isn't opposition here. I think we need to insist that we get more than one from either independent or Labour. Okay. Yeah, okay. I do have just one question, Lisa, sorry, because I jumped in on yours. Well, first, an observation. KPMG, we can't wait for you to join our committee as the external auditors. So I will be happy to welcome them when they do arrive. But just in case we're asked this question, number 24, where you talk about the learning from the Isabel Trail, highways, learning from the Isabel Trail. Have we had any updates on that? Because that was the only bit on that I thought, oh, I'm sure I haven't seen any updates on that, but it could have been that I've read it while I've been tired. Sorry.
That issue was raised as part of the health and safety and wellbeing report. If you want an update, then I can ask the head of health and safety, Becky Lee, to provide an update and circulate that to members. Oh, there is also an audit as well on the 23-24 audit plan that you'll see shortly. So that will give you assurance from an audit perspective. But in terms of that specific one, I can still ask for that update as well.
Thank you, Lisa. We didn't get to, should we write down who attends or not? What do other people think?
I don't think so.
If I could just come back and clarify, my comment was just about how we can make it a representative number. It certainly isn't a criticism of anybody, and with regards to attendance. So I know I wouldn't support that, but equally I think maybe if there's a larger number of us here, then there's more opportunity for us to be able to make time during the day to be able to attend. Okay.
I do agree with Caroline on the fact that obviously there's only Conservative members here today. I would think it'd be nice if Arshaz normally does come, but if he couldn't come, it'd be nice if he could have a substitute to come.
Yes.
Well, that's what I would suggest. But I'll pass over to Graham now.
Chair, a lot of people are not comfortable with figures. And you might find councillors are also not comfortable with figures, just because the councillors in front of you do pretty well at going through documentation. I just, you know, we've already got a thing running at the moment for adult numeracy, and apparently that's 25% of the adults in Staffordshire require that support. So I just think that pressurising people to come onto a committee like this, where you are going through a lot of figures, isn't always that helpful. Thank you.
Lisa, we'll now move on to agenda item 7. This is over to Debbie.
My apologies, Chairman. The next item should be Nat Morrissey and Tracy Thorley, who are on the way. I don't know if you want to take the following item whilst they are on the way.
Yeah, we'll take the following item. So it
Apologies,
is,
Chair.
Debbie, isn't it? So it's agenda item 8, the internal audit strategy and plan. You've got a slide presentation, is that right, Debbie? Over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So this report presents the proposed internal audit plan and strategy for 2023-24. So today we're asking members to consider the contents of the plan and to hopefully endorse it and to recommend for approval of the plan to the Director of Finance and the Section 151. So the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 require that we have an undertaken effective internal audit. And one of the ways that we demonstrate that within the Council is by having a robust risk-assessed internal audit plan. And this is what I'm presenting here to you today. So the full audit plan is on pages 37 to page 85 of your pack. And the plan is now going to be supported by a PowerPoint presentation. So the main aim of today's presentation is hopefully to demonstrate to you that there is a robust methodology for formulating the plan, and that hopefully I will also be able to demonstrate that I can give you comfort that the plan focuses on the key priorities of the Council, and that also the plan achieves not just a balanced sort of flexibility around planned audits, but also allows us to respond to emerging risks as we progress through the year. I'll also touch upon the resources as well for 2023-24 and how we intend to deliver the proposed internal audit plan. So the first part of the document on pages 3 and 4 of the strategy and plan paper is the overall strategy, and this is a key governance document that the Internal Audit Service works to. It's produced annually and endorsed by the Audit and Standards Committee, and this sets out the risk assessment process that we follow in terms of how we risk assess each auditable area across the Council, and also the key principles that we apply when we consider what content we should have within the plan for the year ahead. This document also sets out the number of days that we need for to provide an effective internal audit and to give an overall annual audit opinion. So for the County Council for 23-24, we are suggesting that there's 2,120 days worth of audit time, and that is split across various planned pieces of work, systems and compliance, which is 1,660 days, and then we've also got 460 days worth of counter-fraud work as well. In addition to the 2,120 days, we have external client work, which is made up of academies, the pension fund, our work at South Staffordshire Council and comfort funds, and that comes to 360 days. So the team has an awful lot of work to get through throughout the year. So moving on to some of the main audits that we would like to undertake during 23-24, and we're putting out some of the key aspects now and headlines. One of the areas is the top risk audits, and you will be particularly interested in those because you get to see the full audit report in relation to top risk reviews as well as those limited and special investigations. And hopefully they'll resonate with you. So as you'll see, we've got children's and families transformation, highways transformation, and that was a top risk review last year as well, and you'll get an audit report later on the agenda in relation to that. Digital strategy and transformation continues to be a top risk review. Cyber assurance, as you would expect, we will continue to have a suite of cyber assurance work during 23-24. There is a new entry within the top 10, I feel a bit like a DJ at the minute, the integrated care system and the care partnership. That's a new area that we've not looked at previously, so that's something that we wish to look at to give some comfort to management. We're going to continue to look at our governance arrangements and in particular culture, values and behaviours. And Lisa and I will be progressing a piece of work early on in 23-24 in relation to that. And that will cover a whole multitude of ethical framework, documentation and looking at what we do, and may involve a survey at some point. You'll be pleased to know that SEND is also continues to be a top risk area, which will look at not just the education, health and care plans, but look at SEND transport and also SEND personal budgets. And you'll see later on the agenda under the exempt items, we have got a special investigation in relation to one of those areas. Adult social care, workforce recruitment and retention. That is some project support work that we intend to undertake during the year. And then we've got the protect and prevent duties as well as empowering communities. So we've got some new entries in that top risk review that hopefully you will welcome seeing the contents of those audit reports once they're completed during the year. As you would expect as well, we would like to give comfort over the financial management at the County Council. So we will be undertaking work in relation to payroll, budgetary control. These are standard key financial systems that we do look at each year, as you would probably want us to and expect. Sales to cash and debt recovery we'll continue to look at and give comfort on. Procure to pay and e-payments. And also we will give some comfort over the new back system as well, and as well as the My Finance upgrade. And there will be a full application systems review being undertaken during the year for that. Some of the key governance audits, I've touched upon one of those as part of the top risk reviews. We're looking at culture, values and behaviours and the extent to which the council works within a culture that promotes good ethical standards. As you will be aware, the new scheme of delegation came into place during 22, and again we will give comfort that that has been embedded and is being appropriately applied across the council. We're going to look at Members' Code of Conduct and assessment of the awareness of that and compliance with Members' Codes of Conduct will be looked at as well during the year. And we'll continue to look at our local authority traded companies. You received a report at the last committee in relation to Nexus. We're going to continue to do some work in relation to that area during the year. There are some other areas in relation to sort of partnership governance work as well. So Midlands Engine, the LEP, and just mentioned the Integrated Care Partnership. We also continue to act as the lead authority in relation to pensions and the pensions pool. So myself and a colleague, we chair that, and we bring together the other 8 partner fund authorities, and we come together at least twice a year to look at the audit programme for that, and as part of that we undertake an assurance mapping exercise. At the moment we're just awaiting the risk register there, the revised risk register, so we can then do the assurance mapping process and bring that up to date. But yeah, we do take the lead in that area. In terms of schools compliance, you'll be pleased to know that we will continue to look and undertake compliance visits at schools during 23-24. What you will see when the outturn is presented at the next audit committee, we are continuing to get a high number of limited assurance reviews in relation to schools. So our work is still ongoing in that area, and we are supporting that compliance audits with our continuous controls monitoring programme as well. And we will continue to go round and showcase what internal audit does, and we do now go to the Bursa sessions and the Bursa forums that take place during the year, really just to raise internal audit's profile and really to say to schools to come and talk to us if ever there is an issue. We'd rather get on board quickly. So we try and put faces to names and try and be as approachable as we possibly can. Moving on to the counter fraud plan, we have 460 days worth of time planned for 23-24. 200 of that we put aside for special investigation work during the course of the year. We also do a lot of proactive counter fraud work, and we also do some strategic work around sort of policy development and policy review, as well as offering training and various communications throughout the year. Our proactive counter-fraud exercises that are within the audit plan continue to be influenced by various past occurrences of fraud that we've had in the past. And as you're aware, we had the purchasing cards, cash withdrawal fraud that happened a couple of years ago now. Taxi operators will continue to do some work around compliance with the DPS framework and also around how drivers and personal assistants are being employed. Send personal budgets. We will do an exercise to make sure that everything is in order. And we'll continue to look at various member-led funds such as the Climate Action Fund and the Community Fund, just various quite light touch probity checks that we'll undertake as part of that. So in summary, hopefully I've demonstrated that we've got a good array and coverage across all various areas of the council, including financial management, key digital projects, key partnership arrangements, as well as continuing to support managers when services are brought back in-house from various sort of private sector providers. We'll continue to give assurance over the council's governance arrangements, as well as various procurement and contract management type work during the year. We also have a full programme of ICT audit reviews, and in actual fact, the number of ICT reviews has gone up, I think, by about 50, 60 days for the 23-24 plan, which is interesting to note. So, Chair, I'm happy to take any further questions in relation to the plan content.
Yeah, well, before I pass on to Graham, I just want to thank you for a very comprehensive report. I'll pass you over to Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Very comprehensive report, Debbie, thank you. The one area that seems to be changing rapidly at the moment is cybersecurity. We've just had national alerts about specific threats from Russia and Russian agents, and apparently a lot of it's aimed at our very large corporates and our county councils and government departments. So, do you have any flexibility to do further work? You know, you've got on your cyber ones, you've got 10 days here, 10 days there on specific things. But if the Cyber Security Centre sent out an alert saying you guys really need to, do you have the capacity to send staff off and be trained extra for these sorts of things? It's that flexibility I'm looking for in the audit.
Yes, we do. So we have some contingency time set aside each year to look at any sort of emerging risks. We can also use, if there's anything specialist, we can use our external frameworks that are available to us to undertake any specialist work. Our ICT audit manager, though, we're very lucky to have him. He is very skilled in relation to all things ICT and cyber. And again, he has a very good relationship with the head of ICT, and should there be any issue, and also Tracy Thorley, who's going to be presenting the next item, should they require any further assistance in relation to anything ICT, they can pick up the phone and talk to us, and we're quite more than happy to either swap something around or do something in addition to the work we've already got planned.
Thank you. I did notice that there were 7,000 malicious pieces of code sent into the council, which is quite significant. And I mean, the 500,000 that you put straight into spam, well, an awful lot of ones I get I put into spam because the people who just want to be horrible to me. But that 7,000 items of malicious code, and I think we'll see increases in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. Do you want to take them both at once or one at a time? Thank you. Sort of get it over and done with, Mr. Chairman, judging by your tone. Thank you. Firstly, as far as the risks, firstly, can I say that was a great read and an excellent presentation. So I want to be clear on that. That was really good. So just talking about the risks and audits, so which is great. I agree with, but I particularly want to talk about item 6 and something you said. You used the word maybe, I think, and it's all about culture. Well, I think a culture of any organisation is key to everything. So you won't deliver those unless the culture is absolutely right. It's a bit of an encompassing thing. So it's right to be number 6. It's very right to be behind children. It's very right to be behind highways. Those are our big challenges there. I think the order is perfect. But you said we may do a survey, and I think it's absolutely vital that we do a survey. Firstly, vital we do a survey. Second, it's absolutely right that we should make that public in the sense of I'd like to look at that as far as audits and standards concerned, and we'd like to look at secondly, if there are any challenges in there, do we always have to see senior management? Do we always have to see people at your level? And I mean that in the kindest way. But there are times maybe when you're looking at culture, you maybe see somebody who's working their way through the organisation, somebody who's plans to be with us a long time, and look at the culture. So I'm not sure there's a question in there, Mr. Chairman, but if you take that one first, then I will come back to the second question.
Yes, so I use the word maybe because Lisa and I really do need to go to SRT just to really discuss the approach for the cultures piece of work. But yes, we would want to do a survey because I think we need to gauge what the culture is across the organisation, members and officers. So yes, I note your comment and we will do a survey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And could we have access to that survey? Could we make a note of that? As a committee? Yeah. Thank you. The second one is a really simple question. I haven't seen any mention of blue badges. That's the disabled badges. And from what I see recently, there's a fairly high level of fraud on the blue badges. And I just wonder whether that was going to be looked at.
Blue Badges is picked up as part of the National Fraud Initiative work. So back in January, February time, we would have received back some potential matches where a blue badge has maybe gone out to somebody that is deceased, because that is the match. It's where a blue badge has gone out to a potentially deceased individual, and then they're investigated as part of that process. So we don't try and duplicate that work. So it is included, but it's part of the NFI.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I suppose just to say you do get the results of those exercises and how many matches resulted in an actual fraud loss as well. And I'll point that out as part of the July outturn for you.
Actually, it could actually easily be dismissed, but it's fraud of the highest level. It means that, somebody who's disabled suddenly hasn't got a spot, and it is something I feel quite strongly about, really. But thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think you can not be impressed with the content of what's in here, but I think what might be even more helpful is you refer to the team quite a bit, and what exactly is the team? How many of you are there that are doing all this work? Well, this is what I'm thinking. And I do have a couple of specific questions, but also what I thought was useful as part of the report. Again, I'll refer back to the fact that these are weighty topics. These aren't small topics that are being considered, but it's how that they've been prioritised as well. So I like the old in the top 10, and we have a new entrant to the top 10. But looking through the appendices and looking at the calculations, I think it's just worthwhile mentioning how those are determined, those priorities. I think it's just worthwhile, although we've got content in there, just sort of a couple of bits of information as to how those are done. And then I've got a couple of specifics, if I may. Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of the size of the team, there's currently, including Lisa, 12 of us. We are hopeful that we will recruit during the year as well. On top of that, we do have some budget to buy in external contractor time as well for sort of specialist pieces of work. So we have got nearly a full complement of staff at the moment, but we are looking to recruit some more, but it's very difficult to recruit auditors at the moment. In relation to how we sort of prioritise not just the top 10 but all of our work, so we do go through a very robust risk assessment process. That is detailed on page 46 of your pack, and throughout the year we call it our audit universe. Lisa first put that into play many years ago, and can't think of anything better actually. So whenever we do an audit, we add to this audit universe. It's a huge document. It's about 25 pages of A3, and each year we go through with about 70 officers across the council, talking to them about those pieces of work that we've already identified. We also identify any new areas, particularly like around the grants that we may need to sign off. And then we go about risk scoring it. So we look at the current financial values and volumes of transactions, the impact and linkages through to the strategic priorities of the council, because obviously they change for over time. To try and bring in that cyclical process, we look at the last audit opinion and also when it was last done, to make sure that we are giving coverage throughout a 5-year period, if nothing else. And then we also look at past occurrences of fraud, and also what is the type of system? Is it manual or is it automated, which would then give us an idea whether there could be any sort of manipulation. That then is put into a formula, which we then drives a risk score, and on that basis we tend to cover high risk areas, so anything that generates a score of over 60 is classed as high, and then we start from the top and start working down. What was the, got some? Does that answer that question?
Thank you. Yeah. So just on a quick follow up to what you've just mentioned there, is if there's some indication of the balance between what happens internally and externally with regards to bringing in support for those. And then the two specifics, and I am trying to make sure we keep strategic as opposed to operational in those. When it comes down to the schools, and you mentioned obviously that the support that's been offered, are there a lot of those schools with a staff of a bursar that's on site, or is it part of a MAT that is contracted in themselves? Because I can imagine that being quite a challenge in itself to be able to undertake. And then the last one, which again, trying to be strategic, is there's reference to the robotic process automation in there. Is there an influence on artificial intelligence as well nowadays? Because certainly in some of the areas that I work in, notably education, the prevalence and the use of AI is something that's having a significant impact, and I dare say there may well be on information coming into the council as opposed to what's going out, but not necessarily exclusive. So I say that may be a little bit operational, but yeah, if I may, thank you.
In terms of context, in terms of who delivers what, so the in-house team delivers roughly about 2/3 of the audit plan, and around about 30% goes out to external contractors. Just, yeah. However, all those pieces of work are supervised by an audit manager, which is in-house, to make sure that they're not saying anything that's too silly, to be honest with you. So, yeah, and we obviously have our own QA process as part of that, and they have to also produce the work within our system and also our standard reporting template as well, so it all looks the same and it's all branded the same. In terms of the schools question, there is a mix of schools that have their own bursar and some that buy in support from Entrust, so there is a complete mix there. We look at roughly around about 20 schools a year. In addition, we have around about 67 days to 70 days worth of academy work that we undertake as well. That's a slightly different programme. It's more of a light touch that we do for academies. Our schools compliance programme is quite detailed, to be honest, looking at everything from governance to procurement to payroll and the like. And now I'm going to pass over to Lisa, who's going to talk to you a bit more technically about robotic process automation and AI.
not too technical. No, the reference to the RPA processes sits within my other team, within the Adult and Children's Financial Services. So we've been proactive in looking at those high volume, repetitive tasks that potentially do offer an opportunity for error to creep into, because you're using members of staff to do very repetitive tasks. So there was 4 areas that were identified, of which we're actually using the RPA technology to help us speed up processes, get accuracy better, so that the staff involved can actually focus on more added value within those areas, and have more sort of interaction with members of the public in relation to their financial assessment. So that's ongoing. We've got a few other areas that we would like to develop that in. We're not proposing to use AI at this moment in time. We've written the scripts that allow that technology to operate and basically tell it what it needs to do as part of that process. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will be very quick. Absolutely brilliant strategy report, and yeah, I've got 2 little bits. Mine was on page 58 of your report. It made me laugh when I saw we've got robots now that we're looking at. So exactly the same as Janet was saying, but that was the Digital Strategy and Transformation Robotic Process Automated Pilot. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting. So I didn't expect to see that on there, but nearly everything on there is what I expected. And I'm more than happy with this. The only thing that I have a question on is your 30% that's external. Is there a way to make that less, as in to employ not just one more, but a few more, or grow our own?
So that's what we are looking at, because it is cheaper to have your own in-house team. And when we do get new individuals in, particularly the lower ends, like we are looking at the moment at having another audit assistant, is that we would offer an apprenticeship at the right point in time as well. So we are looking to grow our own. We've currently got 2 apprenticeships that have gone through. We've got a counter-fraud apprenticeship that's now in the 2nd year. So we do like to grow our own wherever possible.
That's really great news. Thank you.
Julia, is Tracy and Natalie here? Right, if you'd like to bring them in. Right, welcome Natalie and Tracy. Who's going to go first? Okay, over to you.
Thank you. I'm conscious of your time, and I know you've got a really packed agenda, so I'm not envisaging to go through the whole report. I'll just pick some highlights out of it for you. So today, we're asking committee to consider the report and the assurances provided within it, and also to note the reporting and management of the data security incidents and those that have been reported to the ICO. And then committee members are just asked to give any feedback or recommendations that can inform this year's work plan. So if I then move to paragraphs 3 and 4, just to close off a couple of points that were raised last year, additional user authentication, put my teeth in, was put in place, and the support that was mentioned around homework in the increase has now levelled out, so it's gone back to pre-COVID levels, so that risk has minimised now. So jumping then to 5, like I say, this report provides a summary of the council's performance, and the period it covers is April 22 to March 2023, in responding to requests for information received. It also reports on the management of data protection, security incidents, and those that are reported to the ICO, as well as the mandatory training for data protection and cyber security. As you can see from the figure in paragraph 8, we use a distributed model of responsibility across the organisation, rather than it being solely the responsibility of myself, Natalie, and the Caldecott Guardians. So, jumping then to information rights in paragraph 10, I was just going to give you some examples of the subject access requests that we will receive, just to give some context on the numbers. So a simple subject access request could be something as simple as someone asking for their own personal information. So it might relate to something specific like information with regard to their request for a blue badge. A complex one could be something where mum's asking for information about the child who is old enough, i.e. has capacity to be asked their views on whether mum's request is valid. So we would have to clarify potential issues around disclosing that information about the child to a legal guardian. Now, mum may be the legal guardian, but the information is still the child's information. So also, if the family or child is known to statutory services, then there could be a large volume of information, which again will add to the complexity and make it a complex subject access request. So out of the ones within the chart that you can see from corporate services, from corporate SARS, we've had 140 and 21 of those were deemed complex. And for children's, out of the 226, 91 of those were deemed complex. So just to give some sort of trends, the high number of requests that we've had this year probably won't be a surprise, have been from parents with regard to education, health and care plans. And as you can see from the chart, even though the numbers have risen, performance has still remained high. And I would have to say this is down to the dedication of the staff and the hard work of the staff, especially within children's, to try and bring that percentage of responding within time scale up to where we would expect to see it. So moving on then to security incidents from point 14 onwards. We have had 477 incidents this year reported between April and March, compared to 351 reported last year. Now, as you can see from the chart, corporate services have seen a higher increase of incidents. This is partly due to the admin staff within children's moving over to corporate services. So if you look at the children's has gone down slightly. But also because we're now starting to push people to record near misses rather than actually there has been a breach. So again, we can understand, is there a process issue that we need to be aware of, or a training issue for those members of staff? So moving on to data sharing then under paragraph 21. We use data privacy impact assessments to support our decision making, and there's been 54 through this reporting period. Again, just to give a range, these can range from something as simple, I say simple, but the household waste recycling van and trailer permit scheme, to something as huge as the Stafford's implementation of the One Health and Care record for children. So they are, you know, two huge extremes of data privacy impact assessments that we could be doing. If I move on then to freedom of information under 23 onwards. Now, the only thing that differentiates a freedom of information request from a service request are that FOIs are requests for recorded information or information extracted out of our systems. So an example of a service request could be somebody asking what time does the library open. whereas an FOI could be in relation to recorded information that's held by the council that's not normally directly shared with the service user. So this year, the main request that we've seen, and again, probably won't be a surprise, has been for information around pothole claims and people requesting information, especially where their claim has been rejected by the council's insurers. And then the second one, again, is around parents looking at the recorded information when they're applying for an EHCP or if they're taking the council to tribunal. So, again, the chart shows that we're still above the ICO target of 90%, with answering within 20 days. And again, this is down to, staff making sure we are responding as quickly as possible to people's requests. I'll move on then to other statutory requests under 26. I just wanted to highlight the probation element within there. As I've said, you can see there's been a huge increase, approximately 650% increase with regard to probation. And this is because there's been a change in the legislation. So the main difference has been there are now more mandatory checks that have to take place, but they've also broadened the scope of those when they would ask for those checks. So whereas previously it would have been an individual who either had children or was seeking contact with children, now it also includes people who present a potential risk of harm to children, or who have refused to answer questions, or where there's a concern that the individual being sentenced may have provided an inaccurate disclosure about their contact with children. So the majority of these checks have a timescale of 24-hour turnaround, which, as you can imagine, with a 650% increase, has put huge pressure on, unfortunately, it's one individual as part of their job. This isn't their sole job. So that's why we're now looking at making sure we can get extra capacity in to be able to meet those timescales. If it's a post-sentence or a pre-release, they actually have a 10-day turnaround. So with regard to the Data Security and Protection Toolkit from paragraph 27 onwards, I just wanted to highlight we are on for meeting our 22-23 submission by the 30th of June. We've got to submit this year's. And what I'll do now is I'll hand over to Natalie to take you through the cybersecurity and the rest of the report.
Thanks, Tracy. Oh, thank you. We continue to be at risk of cyber attack, particularly in the current geopolitical climate. We are working with partners to help address any risks, and we are members of regional groups which help distribute known alerts and any risks that are out there. One of the threat vectors we see is the number of emails that we use. We do seem to be heavily reliant, both at work and in our personal lives, relying on email as our main medium for communication. What we aim to do is secure emails that are leaving our network, but also assess emails that are incoming. We do block a lot of spam, and we do monitor phishing. We encourage people to report any potential phishing emails, as these are a source of malware coming into our authority and putting our network at risk. Looking at other threat vectors, we are looking to implement a SEAM solution. The SEAM stands for Security Incident and Event Management Tool, and what that aims to do is detect, analyse and respond to security threats, and it looks at all our eventing and all our logs and brings it all together with one view, and it prioritises security alerts from all the software that we have in our infrastructure. Having that tool does reduce that happening on a manual level, so it also saves time as well and ensures that no potential alerts are missed. We continue to use the anti-malware tool that's on our network now and on every device. What this will do is it will pick up any unusual behaviour. If it is thought to be related to ransomware, it will quarantine that machine and remove it from the network. At which time ICT can then check to see whether it is an actual threat or whether it can be cleaned and put back in use. Traditionally, we've always done an annual penetration test, which tests the security of our network, both from internal sources and externally as well. We are now doing a lot more scanning. We're not just reliant on that annual one. So that there is more scanning happening, which is good. We continue, point 38, we continue to complete robust due diligence when we are working with partners and other suppliers and providers. Supply chain risks are in the NCSC's top 10 level of risks. So we do continue to work with partners to ensure that any provider that we're working with does have the necessary technical and organisational measures to protect data that they are processing on our behalf. We have seen some incidents recently, not only from other local authorities, but also some of our providers that have been hit, and also local authorities, their suppliers have been hit as well. So it is important that we ensure that they don't impose any additional risk to us. You will have seen recently, point 39, that we have increased the password length from 8 characters to 12. This does give us a huge amount of extra protection. If I just give you an example, an 8-character password, even with complexity, would take 8 hours for a password hacking tool to crack. By introducing a 12-character password, that increases our protection, and that would take 37,000 years to break. You may wonder, you know, why we're concentrating on 37,000. I don't think many of us will be here to actually see the fallout of that one. But it does give us that extra security in the fact that these hacking tools are improving all the time. So it's just a way of us keeping one step ahead. Zero-day vulnerabilities are still an issue. This is where there's a vulnerability out there which developers haven't yet created a fix for. So that does remain an issue and one of our top concerns. Moving on to point 43, accreditation. We have gained PSN accreditation again for 2023. It is felt that maybe this might change as to how this is marked and scored next year, but we are keeping a close eye on that, and included in that work is the work we're doing around the NCSC cyber assessment framework, because we think that might play a part in the future. And lastly, we've also been accredited for Cyber Essentials this year, and there is potential there for us looking at Cyber Essentials Plus. Training remains one of our main focuses. We believe it's really important to ensure all our staff and any other partner that's got access to our network is fully trained. We have full modules for staff to complete, and we also now have the refresher modules as well. So all starters do the full one, and then subsequent years then we allow them to do the refresher course, which is a little bit quicker, but they are those bite-sized videos which are quite engaging. What we are also doing, if I could just pick up point 49 on culture, we are moving forward with our Cyber Champion programme. This is a programme that was introduced by Staff's Police. That has had a bit of a dip recently because the member of staff at Stafford Police moved on. There is now somebody in place there, so that programme is moving on from the summer onwards. We also look at types of surveillance, and we follow the RIPA Act. To date, this reporting period, we haven't had to issue a RIPA application, but we are due an audit this year, so we will be able to report more on that next year. And unless there's anything you want to add to that, Tracy, I think that's all I wanted to say on RIPA and surveillance and cyber. Are there any questions?
Well, no, I think it's a very comprehensive report. I'm sure Janet will have a question though. Go on, Janet.
Thank you. Definitely a comprehensive report there and lots of detail. Just a couple of bits of clarity and a bit more elaboration, if I can, please. Number 19, we can see that, on item 19 rather, we can see that the amount of breaches was a slight decrease. And it's useful having the nature of what they are actually, but is that down to, you think, the impact of the training and the awareness that's going through? Would be my first question on that part. And then if I can just give you my second one as well, which is item 24. And thank you for the probation one, because that is way stand out, isn't it? A massive difference. I see you're still well above the 90% at 99.5, but I noticed the slight decrease, even though there was less volume, but you have already mentioned to the complexity of the nature. So if you could just give us some detail on that part. And I think you also alluded to resource as well. And I just wondered if that was an impact on those. But yeah, very useful report. Thank you.
With the reporting to the ICO, it did go down by one. We do think our training is effective. I think people are more aware of what's reportable, and I think we're probably getting better at assessing what actually needs to go to the ICO. We are, so far, every incident that we have reported, the ICO has come back with no further action, which is good, and I think sometimes that can actually feed into our criteria of when we do report. It's not really very clear on the ICO website what the exact criteria is, but we tend to like to err on the side of caution. We'd rather self-report than the ICO coming to us and saying, why wasn't this reported? So I think it's probably a bit of a mixture of both, really.
And then on point 24, yeah, you're spot on. It is around, some is around the complexity of them, so the time that it takes to get the information. But also, it's not just our staff, i.e. we hadn't got enough staff necessarily to answer the volume. It's actually the services. So we need a response from the service with regard to that FOI. So children's, as we all know, there's been a huge pressure within there because they haven't been able to recruit, especially social workers, and they're the ones who normally would give us the answer to either the FOI or the subject access request. So sometimes you're chasing and chasing and chasing, which then can mean we don't actually hit the time scale we could have done, but we haven't got the information at the touch of a button for us, because we may need that practitioner's input into the response. Or highways would be another one, sheer volume of complaints going through. So.
Caroline?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, both Natalie and Tracy. Excellent report. On page 22, number 22, you talk about the One Stafford information, One Staffordshire information, which we talked a lot about a couple of years ago, and making sharing so much easier. Have I read it right? There's only 314 people signed up to that. Is that what that says at the bottom of it? Organisations. Fabulous. I'm so much happier now. And I do have a question about the FOIs, though. Is that costing us a lot of money now, or this ease of FOIs? Because I think that information should be in the public if it is, because if it's costing taxpayers money to play games, I think that information should get out.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily costing us any more because we haven't increased the staff load, especially around the FOI. But what we're trying to do is publish more information, so on the transparency pages, to try and reduce the FOIs. But sometimes it's not easy to predict what the FOIs are going to ask, what questions they're going to send in. So we do try and look, if we've made a policy change, we know that may prompt some FOIs. So what we'll try and do is put as much information out to the public so that when we do get an FOI, we can literally send a link to the page and say all the information's on there. But it is a point we could look at putting a cost to the number of FOIs that we have. That wouldn't be hard to do.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something I'd like to see, actually, and just, especially when you said that it's people who don't like the outcome of something and then requesting an FOI to try and pick out something that you've missed or not done. I would like to see that, very much so. Thank you.
Move to agenda now. Then we're going to have a 5-minute comfort break, if that's okay. So thank you.
Don't you want to do the forward plan first?
Yeah, so we're going to do agenda item now. And then comfort
sorry.
break.
Apologies.
So go on then.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the forward plan. It's the regular item on the agenda. It gives you an opportunity to comment on the upcoming items that are going to be included in the forward agendas for this particular meeting. I would just say that those items that we talked about as part of the last meeting and that were included within the minutes have been incorporated into the document that you've got here. So I'm happy to take any questions regarding the future content.
Comfort break, okay? Thank you all.
The, where,
Right, gentlemen, would you like to take your seats, please?
Director of Housing, Police Crime Commission.
Just sort them out, Graham. I know. Come on, Phil, you're not chairman yet. Sit down.
where's she going? Still down there. She's got a plan. Let's hope it's nice. Let's hope it's nice.
The water's not very
Well
hot.
done, Anne. I bought you a water. I wasn't sure if you wanted it, but I bought
Well, I
you
shouldn't have had that tea because it's bloody cold. Horrible.
Have your water instead.
Thanks a lot.
I do the same.
Chair, you've got all the Highgates wise, the highways guys,
Yeah.
all the
Right.
Highgates wise
Yeah,
have coming together, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've done that one.
yeah.
You need to exclude the public as soon as we
I
kick
know,
in
I
again,
know,
because it's
me
not
too.
kicked the
Yeah,
thing off.
yeah.
And then
Okay.
7 minutes and,
And then do the minutes and then straight into infrastructure with Scott. Scott's going to lead on that.
Yeah.
And then Dave Waters. James, they're all in
Okay.
together, but it's Scott and Dave Waters. The one in the white suit. Yeah,
And then-
Scott's the one in the white suit.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll kick in the confidential item part 2. Again, I have to read out the blurb. I do apologise. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the, and it's got turned over another page then, of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. Well, as you know, we've done